walking home at night, even in a familiar neighborhood, even when I know every street light. There's something about the darkness that feels wrong. It was Halloween night, and I had stayed late at a friend's party. The streets were empty now. The kids had gone home, dragging their candy buckets behind them. The wind was cold and sharp. Branches scraped against houses. Leaves rustled across the pavement. Every few seconds, a dog barked in the distance. I decided to take my usual shortcut, a narrow alley between two old houses. Normally, it's fine. I've walked it hundreds of times. But that night, it felt different. The alley was darker than usual. The street light at the far end flickered, and for some reason, every window along the alley seemed brighter than it should be. I stopped, catching my reflection in one of them. Nothing unusual, just me, hunched in my jacket, hands in my pockets. I took a step forward, then I froze. The reflection moved before I did. I swear it moved on its own. My head stayed straight, but the reflection tilted slightly, slowly, deliberately, and it smiled. I blinked, shook my head. It couldn't be real. I leaned closer. The smile widened. Then I noticed the hands pressed against the glass from the inside. Long, pale, too steady to be mine. I stumbled. Back, heart pounding. A soft tapping followed. Fingernails against the window pane. I wanted to run. Wanted to scream. But my legs didn't move. Then it stepped back, out of the reflection. Or maybe into it. Because the window looked empty, I dared a glance down the alley. Empty, silent, too quiet. I told myself I imagined it. I walked faster, almost jogging now. Halfway through, I saw another reflection, a different window, the same smile, the same hands pressed flat. I broke into a sprint. By the time I reached the main street, I thought I was safe. Some neighbors still had their porches lit. Children's laughter faint in the distance. I slowed down, trying to calm myself. Then I saw it. In the window of the corner store, the reflection of someone behind me. Watching, turned, nothing. I looked back, the figure still there. It mirrored me perfectly. Every movement I made, it did too. Every step I took, it followed. I ran the last block home, locked the door, checked every window, no sign of anyone. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that reflection, smiling, waiting. The next morning, I told myself it was over. Just a trick of the light. Halloween messing with my head. But that evening, I noticed something in my kitchen window. A faint outline, a hand pressed against the glass. I froze, heart racing. Vanished when I blinked. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was a shadow, a branch brushing against the window. But over the next week, it kept happening. I'd see hands, faces, shadows, always at night, always in the reflections. I started avoiding mirrors, windows, anything that could reflect me. Even the screens on my phone made me nervous. I felt like I was being watched. Always. Halloween came around again, a year later. I decided to walk to the store early, just for candy. Nothing else. The streets were quiet, the wind sharp, the same branches scraping against houses. When I walked past the alley, I froze. A single pumpkin sat on the curb, orange, smooth, uncarved. Didn't move. Something about it made my stomach twist. Then I noticed the reflection. It wasn't me. It was standing in the middle of the alley, tall, lean, silent, watching. I blinked. It smiled. I ran faster than I ever had before. I don't know if it followed me. I don't want to know. Since then, I haven't walked alone at night. I avoid mirrors. I cover windows. I never look behind me. But sometimes, when I'm home alone, I see a hand pressed against the inside of my window, and I know it's smiling, waiting. I didn't plan on going out that night. Halloween always felt overrated to me. Too many kids. Too many decorations. Too much noise. But my friend called, insisted I meet them at the old fairgrounds, just outside town. Something about it being the only haunted spot worth seeing. I almost said no. Almost stayed home. But curiosity got the better of me. The fairgrounds were abandoned. Now, rusted rides, cracked asphalt, carnival posters peeling from the fences. The place had been shut down for years. Yet someone had strung lights along the old midway, dim orange bulbs, flickering in the wind. It looked alive. I parked at the edge of the lot. My friend was already there, waving from near the Ferris wheel. We laughed, joking about how cliché it all looked. Costumes, fake spiders, wind rattling the skeletal framework of the rides. The air smelled faintly like burnt sugar and wet leaves. As we walked through the midway, I noticed something strange. There was no one else around, no other kids, no parents, no teenagers, just us and the lights. They weren't perfect. Some bulbs flickered. Others burned steady, but I noticed a pattern. Whenever I looked away, a bulb across the path would suddenly flare brighter, as if something or someone was moving along the midway. I told myself it was my imagination. Wind, shadows, a trick of perspective. We reached the old carousel. The horses swayed slightly, though the wind was barely strong enough to move them. My friend leaned on the central pole, taking a picture of me. Flash went off. When I looked back up, the lights along the midway had shifted. They weren't where they had been moments ago. Closer, flanking the path behind us, just out of sight. I stopped. My friend noticed. See something? I shook my head. Just the wind, maybe, but I knew better. We kept moving, step by step. I counted the bulbs flickering behind us. 4, then 5, then 6. Too many to be a coincidence. Suddenly, the carousel stopped moving entirely. Even the creak of the gears had vanished. The only sound was the wind whispering through the broken carnival tents. And then I heard footsteps, soft, dragging slightly. Not my friend's, not mine. I spun around. No one there. I called out. My voice sounded loud, echoing. Hello? Nothing. The footsteps stopped as well. I laughed nervously, trying to shake it off. My friend didn't notice anything. Or maybe they were pretending. We turned toward the exit, a stretch of empty midway, the Ferris wheel looming above. The orange lights flickered like dying fireflies, and then one of them went out. Not broken, not blown, just vanished. I froze. Another one went out in perfect sequence behind me. My friend noticed my pause. Hey, what's wrong? Before I could answer, the lights ahead, the ones lining the far end of the midway, flared brighter than before. Too bright, too unnatural. And I saw them. 2 figures, just beyond the last flickering bulb, standing perfectly still, tall, thin, clothed in dark shadows that didn't belong to the moonlight. They didn't walk. They glided slightly, step after step, perfectly synchronized with the lights. I wanted to scream, I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. My friend stepped forward, laughing. What is it? Where? I turned to point. The figures were gone. Only the lights remained, flickering again. I told myself it was a trick, a reflection of the wind. Nothing real. We started walking faster. Every few seconds, a bulb flickered behind us, moving, tracking. Dared a glance. The figures reappeared, closer now, gliding, silently behind the lights. My chest tightened. I pulled my friend. Forward. Run. Just run. We reached the car. I slammed the door, locked it, panting, hands shaking, trying to make sense of what I saw. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining the shadows, the lights, how they always flared exactly where we were. The next morning, I drove past the fairgrounds again, empty, silent, no lights, no shadows, but when I reached the spot where we parked, my car had a thin line scratched across the hood. Not deep, just enough to feel deliberate, and etched faintly in the dust were letters. See you next year. I never returned to the fairgrounds, not at night, not in daylight. But every October, when I drive past, I swear I see the faint glow of lights along the midway, and I know they're waiting. They always wait. I was walking home from a late-night shift when I first saw it. It wasn't on my usual route. I would have remembered a house here, but there it was, sitting at the end of a street I've walked 1,000 times, a small, gray Victorian with a crooked porch, flickering orange lights strung across the eaves. A single jack-o'-lantern sat on the porch step. It wasn't carved, just orange, round, glowing softly. I stopped, blinking, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. The street behind me looked exactly as it always did, empty, silent. And yet, this house, it didn't belong. I looked around. No for sale signs, no construction equipment, no one. I shook my head. Maybe a neighbor put it up early for Halloween, I muttered, but the lights were moving, not flickering like normal. Slow, subtle, almost breathing. I kept walking, pretending I hadn't noticed, but something in my chest told me to stop. The closer I got, the more I noticed the details. Windows, black as tar, curtains drawn, no mailbox, no number. Just the soft glow from the porch and the single pumpkin. I wanted to look away, wanted to keep moving, but curiosity got the better of me. I stepped onto the cracked sidewalk. The porch creaked under my weight. I froze. The pumpkin was facing me, not random. It had turned. I swore I could feel its gaze, like it was watching me. A breeze whispered through the trees, the leaves rustled, and then I heard a door creak open behind me. I spun, around nothing. I turned back. The porch light flickered, and the pumpkin was gone. I stumbled backward, heart racing. I looked around. Street still empty. No cars, no people. Told myself it was a prank. Some kid moving the pumpkin around while I walked by. Then I saw the door. It wasn't fully open before. Now it was wide. A dark shape stood in the doorway. Tall, thin, motionless. I froze. I wanted to speak. Nothing came out. The shape tilted its head slowly, curiously, and then stepped aside. The air smelled of damp leaves and something metallic. Blood. Maybe. I wanted to turn and run, but my feet wouldn't move. I stepped forward. Inside, the house smelled of dust and old wood. The walls were lined with mirrors, all of them covered in sheets. I pulled one back, reflected in the glass. Nothing. I moved deeper. The wooden floorboards groaned beneath me, each step echoing unnaturally. The pumpkin reappeared. Not on the porch, not in the living room. It was behind me now, on the floor, glowing faintly. I spun around. No one there. Then I heard it, footsteps, soft dragging coming from the hallway behind me. I ran through the house, through rooms filled with covered furniture. Shadows shifted unnaturally in the dim light. The pumpkin glowed softly on each landing. I reached the front door. It wasn't there before, but now it was wide open. I ran out. The air hit me like a wall, cold, sharp, biting. The house stayed behind me, crooked, silent, but the pumpkin followed. I ran down the street, blinking, panting. When I looked back, the house had vanished. No porch, no pumpkin, no crooked Victorian. I reached my apartment, locked every door, shut every curtain, tried to convince myself it was gone. I woke up hours later, the sky gray, the city quiet, but on my doorstep, a pumpkin, orange, round, glowing. Faintly in the morning light, no carving, no candle. Haven't left the apartment at night since. I don't answer the door, don't look out windows, and every Halloween, I swear I hear soft creaks in the hall, footsteps moving, dragging, like the house is walking, following me, waiting. I should have turned back, but curiosity has a way of clouding judgment. Halloween night, and my friends dared me to follow Hollow Creek Road to the abandoned cabin at the edge of the forest. It was far from town. Nothing but trees, the creek, and the cold October air. No streetlights, no passing cars. Just darkness and the crunch of dead leaves under my tires. I parked on the shoulder. The moon hung low, pale, partially hidden by clouds. A chill ran through the air. Something about the wind made it sound alive. The cabin was small, wood gray and rotten, windows boarded, but some boards were loose. The roof sagged like it might collapse at any second. Smoke curled faintly from the chimney. I froze. The place had been abandoned for decades. Everyone in town knew it, yet smoke. I told myself someone else had been here. Maybe kids, pranksters, maybe a caretaker from a nearby farm. I stepped onto the path leading to the door. Leaves and sticks snapped underfoot. Every step felt loud, echoing too much in the quiet forest. When I reached the porch, I saw it. A single pumpkin, orange, carved crudely. Its candle flickering, but the face, it wasn't smiling. It was frowning, angry. I shouldn't have stepped closer. The air felt heavy, like the forest itself was holding its breath. And then I heard it, a voice, low, whispering, coming from inside the cabin. Come in. I froze, heart racing, adrenaline making my legs shake. It sounded human, but wrong, hollow. My friends hadn't followed me this far. No one should be here. I took a step back. The boards on one of the windows rattled. I swear I saw movement inside. A figure standing, watching. I called out,
"Hello, is someone there?"
Nothing. And then a second voice, soft, childlike. From the porch, "You brought the pumpkin." I turned sharply. No one was there. I didn't answer. Instead, I edged back to the path. Then the door creaked open. I wanted to run. I didn't. A tall man stepped out, face shadowed by a hood, hands gripping the door frame. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice calm, but the air around him felt wrong. I told him we were just curious. He smiled. Slow, not friendly. "Curiosity," he said, "always comes at a cost." I wanted to leave. The path behind me now seemed longer, darkness pressing in. Then a small hand touched my arm. I spun. A girl, maybe 8, costume torn, face pale, eyes wide, watching me. "Play with us," she whispered. I shook my head. "Go away, I'm leaving." The man stepped forward. Not aggressively, but enough to block my path. "You can't leave yet," he said. The girl smiled. I turned, ran. Through the trees. The forest seemed endless. Branches grabbed at my jacket, the ground uneven, roots tripping me. Behind me I heard laughter. Not my friends. Soft, high-pitched, echoing through the trees. I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. When I finally reached the road, my car was gone. I stumbled, panic rising. Then I heard it. Tires crunching gravel behind me. I ran into the darkness. Finally, hours later, I found my car. Keys in the ignition. Door unlocked. No one around. No lights in the forest. I drove home without looking back. Heart pounding. The next morning, I told my friends about the cabin. They laughed. Called it a Halloween prank. But when I got home, I found the pumpkin on my porch, carved, frowning, with a small note tucked inside. Next time, stay longer. I never went back to Hollow Creek, not at night, not at any time, but every October when the wind blows through the trees, I swear I hear children laughing. Soft, echoing, and I remember the cabin and the man and the little girl who didn't belong. Sometimes, I feel eyes watching me from the forest's edge, and I know they're waiting. I've always hated trick-or-treating, not because I didn't like candy, not because I was scared of costumes. I just hated the idea of walking around, knocking on strangers' doors, pretending to be someone else. That year, I was 16, too old to trick or treat, too young to really care about Halloween parties. I figured I'd just stay home. Until my little brother begged me to come along. We left around sunset. The sky was that dull orange, the kind that makes shadows feel sharper. Leaves swirled in the wind. The street smelled like smoke and fallen leaves and something faintly sweet from the pumpkin spice latte I'd gotten on the way. Our neighborhood wasn't scary, not really. Just quiet houses with kids in costumes, running between porches, until we reached the end of Willow Lane. The street curved, and there it was. The house everyone in the neighborhood whispered about. No one ever went up the driveway. The windows were dark, but not the kind of dark from curtains, the kind of dark that looked like it was waiting for you. That night, for some reason, it had a porch light on, a pale, flickering orange. No jack-o'-lanterns, no fake cobwebs, no decorations, just that one light. I tried to tell myself it was normal. Maybe someone had moved in. Maybe it was a neighbor's prank. My little brother didn't hesitate. He ran up the sidewalk, waving at the door, shouting, "Trick or treat." I followed slowly, trying not to look at the windows. No answer. Nothing. I knocked again. A soft, shuffling sound came from inside, like someone dragging their feet across the floor. My brother smiled. Maybe they're just slow. Come on. But I froze, because the sound, it didn't stop. Even after we walked back down the porch steps, it followed us. A steady, quiet shuffle, dragging. I looked at my brother. He didn't notice. He was too busy laughing, holding his bucket. I told myself I was imagining it. I walked faster. Halfway down the street, my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Why are you here?" I looked around. No one. Just the street, the wind, the leaves. I showed my brother. He laughed. Probably some dumb prank. "Let's go." We kept walking, but every few steps, I felt eyes on us, not from the neighbors, from the house. The windows looked like dark pools, watching, waiting. We turned the corner onto Maple Avenue. Safe, I thought. The streetlights were brighter here, but then I heard it again, a soft tapping, wood against wood, like someone inside the Willow Lane house was walking along the floorboards, moving toward the door. I froze. My brother didn't notice. I told him to wait. I went back, just a few steps. I didn't even reach the porch, and then I saw it. The front door was open, not ajar, not cracked, completely open, and no one had answered the door when we knocked. I swallowed, tried to call out, but my voice stuck in my throat. I saw a figure in the darkness, a small shape, crouched, moving slowly from room to room. It didn't look human. Or maybe it did, but the proportions were wrong. The head too big, the arms too long, the way it moved, jerky, uneven. My heart started pounding. I turned back. The street looked empty, quiet. My brother still standing there. Smiling, I wanted to run. Couldn't. The figure stepped into the hallway near the open door, and I realized it wasn't moving randomly. It was looking at me. A soft voice whispered from the darkness, "Why are you here?" I ran. I grabbed my brother. We sprinted down the street. Every step felt heavier. I felt it following us, even after we turned corners. We didn't stop until we reached our street. Thought it was over until the next morning. There was a pumpkin on our front porch, not carved, no candle, just orange, smooth, and perfectly round. I told my parents it must have been a neighbor. They didn't believe me. I didn't tell them about the figure, or the text, or the door. That night, I checked the windows, all. The streetlights were normal. The neighbors were quiet, except for Willow Lane, the house at the end. The porch light flickered again, and I swear I saw something move inside, watching. The pumpkin on our porch didn't move, but I knew it was waiting. The days that followed, strange things started happening. Doors I'd locked would be unlocked, drawers slightly open, and sometimes I'd hear tapping, soft, dragging across my floorboards. I told myself it was nothing, just the house settling, just my imagination. But on Halloween night, a week later, the pumpkin was gone, and on the doorstep, a small folded piece of paper. It said, simply, next year. I haven't walked down Willow Lane since. I don't plan to. But every October, I feel the cold wind shift, smell faint smoke and leaves, and I wonder if someone is still waiting in that house, just behind the windows, watching, counting. It started with a sound, a faint static crackle through my radio, right after midnight. I wasn't even supposed to be awake. I work early mornings at a gas station outside town, but that night, I couldn't sleep. Halloween always made me restless. So I sat in my living room with a beer, flipping through stations, mostly old rock and late-night talk shows. Then, suddenly, a voice came through, not from any channel I recognized, just testing, 1, 2. The voice was calm, male, steady, then silence. I looked at the radio. The screen was blank. No station number, just static and that voice. "Can anyone hear me?" it said. I turned the volume up. The sound wasn't coming from the radio. It was inside the room. The walls seemed to hum faintly with it. I froze. Didn't breathe. "If you can hear this," the voice continued, "don't go outside tonight." My stomach tightened. The tone wasn't theatrical or fake. It sounded real, scared, almost, like someone was whispering from a basement somewhere. I sat perfectly still, listening. "You might see them," the man said. "They look like you, they walk like you, but they're not supposed to be." Here, static, then silence again. I laughed nervously. Probably some pirate radio broadcast, I thought. People do that kind of weird stuff every Halloween. I turned the dial. Nothing. Back to static. Back to silence. I shut it off, went to bed. But just as I started drifting off, I heard the same voice again. This time, through my phone, I grabbed. It screened dark, no call, no notifications, but the voice was clear. "They're at your door." I jumped up, heart pounding, looked out the window and froze. There was a man standing in my yard. He wasn't moving, just standing tall, still, head tilted slightly toward the house. No costume, just plain clothes, dark jacket, jeans. The streetlight flickered, and for a second, I thought there were two of him. I blinked. "Only one now," the voice on my phone whispered again. "Don't open it, no matter what you hear." I dropped the phone. It landed face down on the floor. The voice still faintly coming through. Knock, soft, measured. "Hey man." The voice outside was identical to mine. Same tone, same rhythm. I think I dropped something. I backed away. "Open the door," it said again. My throat went dry. It sounded just like me. I grabbed the bat from behind the couch. My heart was thudding so loud I could barely think. Then the knocking stopped. For a moment, silence. Then 3 more knocks, faster this time, harder. "Come on," it said. "I just need a second." "I live here too." The words froze me completely. "I live here too." I backed toward the hallway. The radio turned itself on again. The same broadcast, same voice. "If they find you," it said, "don't run. They'll follow the sound. Just stay still." I dropped to the floor, hands shaking, breath held. The door creaked open. My blood ran cold. Footsteps, slow, heavy, then, faintly, a second pair, one in boots, one barefoot. They stopped right outside the living room. I could see the shadow from under the door frame. 2 sets of feet. I didn't move. The air felt wrong, like the room itself was holding its breath. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the footsteps retreated. The door clicked shut. Silence. I stayed there for what felt like an hour. When I finally stood up, I checked every door, every window. Nothing broken, nothing touched. The yard was empty, no footprints, no one outside. Just the faint hum of the radio. Still on, still whispering. "Good job," the voice said softly. "You listened." And then static. I unplugged everything. Radio, phone, router. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went to work. My coworker looked pale, tired. He asked, "Did you hear it too?" I said, "Hear what?" He swallowed hard. The broadcast, around midnight. A man's voice saying, "Not to go outside." I didn't answer. Then, he said something that stuck with me ever since. I looked out my window right after, and I saw someone standing in my yard, wearing my jacket. He looked at me, dead serious. "Thing is," he said quietly, "I was wearing it at the time." I always thought Halloween in the country was boring. Nothing but empty roads, forests, and the occasional house with a flickering porch light. No haunted houses, no crowds of kids, no city chaos, just quiet. That night, I was driving home from a friend's party. It was past midnight. The road was narrow, winding between dense trees, and the fog rolled in low. Headlights barely cut through it. The air smelled of wet leaves and cold earth. Then I saw it. A light. Faint. Yellow, hovering in the middle of the forest near the side of the road. It swayed gently, like a lantern caught in the wind. I slowed. Curiosity prickled at my spine. No, one should be walking out here. Not at this hour. Not in the middle of the woods. But it wasn't moving like someone carrying it. It floated. I parked the car, heart thumping. The fog thickened. Every sound, a twig snapping, a branch brushing, was amplified. I stepped out. Cold air cut through my jacket. The lantern swayed closer. I called out, hesitating. "Hello? Who's there?" No reply. I took a step forward. The lantern stopped, then drifted a few feet to the left. My instincts screamed at me to leave. I couldn't. Something made me move closer. Then I saw them figures, tall, shadowy, standing among the trees. No faces, just outlines. And the lantern was in front of them, floating silently. I froze. They didn't move, just watched. A soft wind whispered through the branches. It sounded like laughter. Low, faint, almost human. I took another step back. The lantern floated toward me, closer, as if inviting me. And then I noticed something horrifying. The figures weren't standing on the ground. Their feet barely touched it. They glided, slowly, silently. I turned to run. Branches whipped my face. Roots tore at my shoes. Fog thickened. Behind me, the lantern drifted, not chasing me, leading me. I stumbled into a clearing, a small, abandoned cabin, windows shattered, roof sagging. The fog curled around it like smoke. The lantern stopped at the doorstep. I looked at it, then into the cabin. Inside, a single table. Candles burned, though there was no breeze. And on the table, a small hand-carved pumpkin, smiling. I stepped closer. Then the lantern floated inside. The door slammed behind me. Darkness, cold, silent. I felt a presence, a dozen shadows. Moving just beyond the candlelight, watching, a voice whispered, not through the air, but inside my head. "You found us. Now stay." Panic consumed me. I tried the door. Locked. Windows boarded. I realized I wasn't supposed to leave. Not tonight. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt wrong. Then, silence. Morning sunlight broke through cracks in the roof. I opened my eyes. The cabin was empty. No shadows, no lantern, no pumpkin. I bolted outside. The forest looked normal. Again. Road ahead clear. I ran to my car, door unlocked, keys in ignition. When I reached town, everything seemed the same until I got home. There was a small lantern on my porch, flickering softly. No one had been there, and inside, a note carved into a piece of wood. See you next Halloween. I never take the forest road again. I don't go out at night, and every year, as October ends, I swear I hear the soft, dragging whispers of shadows in the trees, waiting. I've never been a fan of Halloween, but that year, my friends dared me to explore the old Hollow Moon farm, abandoned for decades, far outside town. Nobody went there, except for rumors. They said the place was cursed. They said if you went alone, you might not come back. I didn't believe it. Not really. I drove out that night. The road was narrow, winding, and covered with fallen leaves. Fog rolled in low. Headlights barely cut through the mist. Every rustle of the trees sounded like footsteps. I reached the farm just as the moon peeked over the horizon, full, pale, and bright. The farmhouse was gray and sagging, windows shattered, porch rotting. The barn leaned dangerously to one side. I parked my car and stepped onto the dirt path. The air was cold, biting, smelled like wet earth and decay. The first thing I noticed, a light. Small, flickering, inside the barn. I froze. No electricity, no candles should have been there. And yet, the glow pulsed softly, almost beckoning. I whispered to myself, maybe someone's hiding, making a Halloween setup. I took a step toward the barn, then another. Leaves crunched beneath my boots. The closer I got, the more I noticed. The light wasn't stationary. It moved, slowly, as if floating. A soft noise reached my ears, whispering, not words, just sighs. Low, faint, almost human. I stopped. The barn door creaked open, on its own. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run. But curiosity made me step inside. The barn smelled of dust, hay, and something metallic. Shadows stretched along the walls. In the corner, a row of lanterns. Flickering, floating, moving slowly toward me. I swallowed hard, and that's when I saw them. Figures, small, pale, children, wearing costumes from decades ago. Masks cracked, eyes hollow. They didn't speak. They just watched me, step by step. They moved closer. I backed up, heart racing. The lanterns followed. I stumbled over a hay bale. The shadows laughed, soft, eerie, almost delighted. I ran toward the exit. The barn door slammed shut. I yanked it open and froze. The farmhouse porch was lit, the same flickering light. But now, there were more figures, standing silently, watching. I tried to shout. Nothing came out. The children followed, the barn, the lanterns, all moving behind me. Soft steps, dragging. I made it to my car, jumped in, locked the doors. Engine roared to life. When I looked back, the farmhouse was gone. Empty field, nothing. No barn, no porch, no figures. I drove home in silence, shaking, heart pounding. I thought it was over. Until morning. A small lantern was on my front porch, glowing faintly. Orange, warm, inviting. And in the dust beneath it, tiny footprints, leading from my porch into the woods behind my house. I haven't been near that forest since. I don't go out after dark. I avoid Halloween. But every year, I see a flicker in the distance, a soft glow, moving slowly, and I know it's waiting for me. I didn't plan on being out that night. Halloween in the country is quiet. Too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your own heartbeat sound loud. I was driving home from my friend's farm, the headlights cutting through the fog. The road was narrow, lined with skeletal trees. Leaves swirled in the wind, scraping against the car. And then I saw it, a lantern. Orange, flickering, hovering just above the ground in the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes. Fog rolled thick around it. The light pulsed like a heartbeat. I stepped out. Cold air cut through my jacket. No footsteps, no sound, except the whispering wind. The lantern floated toward the edge of the forest. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to leave. But something made me follow. The path was narrow. Branches scratched my arms. Leaves crunched underfoot. The lantern moved slowly ahead, always staying just out of reach. And then I saw the cabin, small, old, collapsed in places. Smoke curling from the chimney, but the windows were dark. The lantern floated through the front door. I hesitated, then stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Rot, hay, cold wood. And then I saw them. Children, half hidden in shadows. Masks cracked and faded, eyes hollow, staring. They weren't moving at first. Then one stepped forward, small, silent, holding a lantern identical to the one that led me here. I wanted to run, but the lanterns multiplied, floating along the walls, flickering orange lights dancing in the shadows. The children began to move, gliding slowly, quietly, surrounding me. I ran through the barn, past the hay bales. The lanterns followed. The children followed. Soft footsteps dragging. The door was ahead. I threw it open. The night air hit me, cold, clean. I ran toward my car, headlights barely visible through the fog. When I looked back, the cabin, the children, the lanterns, gone. I thought I was safe until morning. A lantern was on my porch, small, flickering, orange, and in the dust beneath it, tiny footprints leading back into the woods. I haven't touched it, haven't looked at it. Every Halloween, I see a flicker in the forest, a soft glow, moving slowly, and I know I'll hear the footsteps soon. I should have stayed home. It was Halloween night. Fog rolled thick over the country road, the kind of fog that swallows headlights and sound. I was driving slowly, past abandoned fields, old barns leaning at impossible angles, rusty fences disappearing into the mist. I wasn't alone. I could feel it. The kind of feeling that sits on your chest, heavy and constant. That's when I saw the first lantern, dim orange light, floating along the side of the road, not swinging like someone holding it, but gliding, silent. I slowed my car, heart beating fast. The lantern paused, as if waiting for me. I told myself it was just a decoration, a prank. But there were no houses for miles, no signs of life. I stepped out. The cold air cut through my jacket. Leaves rustled underfoot, and the lantern floated closer. I followed it. The fog thickened. Branches scraped my arms. Twigs snapped under my feet. Every sound echoed unnaturally. After a few minutes, I saw another lantern, then another. A line stretching into the woods, flickering orange lights leading deeper. I didn't want to follow, but curiosity, or maybe fear, kept me moving forward. The path ended at an old farmhouse. Boarded windows, sagging roof. A chimney collapsed on one side. Smoke rose from the fireplace. Impossible. The place had been abandoned for decades. I stepped onto the porch. The boards groaned under my weight. And that's when I saw them, children. 5, maybe 6. Small, pale, costumes torn and faded. They didn't move at first. Just watched me. And the lanterns. They floated around them, circling slowly. One child stepped forward, holding a small pumpkin, orange candle flickering inside, eyes hollow, staring. "You brought it," the child whispered. Not a question, a statement. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The child tilted its head, slowly, and smiled. I stumbled back, and that's when I realized the lanterns were following me now, circling my legs, flickering brighter. Closer. I ran, through the trees, branches scratching my face, roots tripping me. The farmhouse loomed behind me, silent, waiting. I reached my car, slamming the door behind me, locked it. Engine roared to life. When I looked back, the farmhouse was gone. Nothing but trees, fog, the empty road. I tried to convince myself it was over, that I had imagined it, until the next morning, a small pumpkin sat on my porch, orange, carved, glowing faintly. I hadn't put it there. No one had. I checked the street. No footprints, no tire tracks, just the faint smell of earth, and the sense that something was watching, that night. And every night since Halloween, I hear whispers outside my window, soft, low, dragging along the leaves. The lanterns, still following, and I know, if I ever go back on that road, I won't be alone.